Okay.
Yes, sir. How are you? Good to see you, brother.
A big warm reception today.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun.
So
I love it.
So I think, we talked to a bunch of people who were here, and everybody wants to know why you want to run. I mean, you were governor. Why do you want to be mayor of New York?
I think it's simple because I'm a lifelong New Yorker, as you know. I love New York. There's no place like it. I want to leave it as special for my children as my parents left it for me. And New York City is in trouble. New York City is in crisis. And I've been through the ups and downs of New York, and I know the economic cycles, but this is different. This is different. We have COVID, we have high taxes, and then you have this deterioration of the quality of life where people don't feel safe to walk on the streets. People are worried about the mentally ill being on the streets. The affordability crisis, people cannot afford to live here. You can't find affordable housing. The vacancy rate is down to about 1.5 points on housing. So these are major problems for people. And New York is losing people. It's not just that the situation is difficult. People are voting with their feet. They are leaving, especially the wealthier New Yorkers, and that's important because they pay the taxes. So it is a critical situation. And we have to make changes, and we have to make changes fast. Now, it's not that easy to make change in government, right? There's a bureaucracy, there's a legislature.
And you're going to have to deal with Albany again.
Well, yes, you're going to have to deal with Albany, you're going to have to deal with the city council.
How will you get along with Albany and the city council?
Well, the city council and the legislature, I think they both understand how critical this situation is.
You think so?
Oh, yes. Look, you can't live in this city, and the majority of state legislators live in this city. You can't live in this city and not know the city's in trouble.
So Mr. Carl Hasty had a shooting outside of his office, and according to my sources, he refused to cooperate with the police in the investigation. So do you think that's going to be changing?
Democracy fundamentally works, right? Those legislators get elected in New York City by constituents in New York City. And if their constituents feel that the city is not doing well, they're going to know about it. Look at the piece that we did on the cannabis shops, right? The illegal cannabis shops, the weed shops as they're called. You bring that to attention, and the legislative bodies responded. Why? Because people vote for them, and if their people aren't happy, it's not good for them. Democracy works. So they know we have trouble. Now, you have to show leadership, and somebody has to step up and say, here are the problems, here are the solutions, we're going to focus on it. Somebody has to show the leadership to galvanize that public opinion. But that's what government leadership is all about. When we were talking inside, we had that COVID crisis.
All right, that's what we got to talk about it, because it's 5 years, right? 5 years since we were all locked down during the pandemic. And as you know, you've been getting dogged about putting seniors back in nursing homes when they were still not well. Would you have done something different? Looking back now, 5 years later, would you have done something different?
Yeah. First of all, COVID was such a disruptive situation for so many people on so many levels. Remember what you did. You closed schools, you closed businesses, you made people wear masks, only 25 people in a room. It was probably the most restrictive environment that government ever imposed. So there are a lot of people who in retrospect say, you shouldn't have done this, you shouldn't have done that, you shouldn't have done this.
And what does your gut tell you?
Well, first of all, remember what we were dealing with during COVID. We had no idea what was going to happen. I had the best health experts in the country in my office, and Rosanna, they did not know. They did not know how many people were going to die.
I know, right. We had no idea. And when you look back, you had an empty ship, you had an empty Javits Center. Why couldn't you put some of the sick seniors in those places?
The SHIP and the Javits Center were set up as precautions if we needed them for overflow. We never needed them for overflow. We got the situation under control before that. But look, COVID was a horrendous, once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. It focused on nursing homes, as you know, because that's where COVID preyed the most. 2 million Americans died during COVID. Every one of them was a tragedy. People died in nursing homes in New York under the worst situations imaginable. We had put in restrictions that said visitors can't go into nursing homes because we were afraid they would bring in more COVID. That means people in nursing homes were dying alone. It means you couldn't go say goodbye to your mother or your father or your grandmother. It was horrific. It was horrific. And my heart breaks for people who had to live through that situation. I lost my father. I can't imagine being in a situation where I couldn't even go say goodbye. I couldn't even be there.
I know. There are people to this day who are upset. They're still grieving. They're angry with you. Do you feel that you owe them an apology?
I am sorry for what they had to go through. It was horrific. Just take the basic fact that they could not go in to say goodbye. Yes, all the health experts said to me those were the right regulations to put in place because a visitor might bring in more COVID, which is the last thing we wanted. But on the flip side, people didn't get a chance to say goodbye. I understand why the health department wanted the restrictions. And by the way, not just in New York, this was nationwide. These were the restrictions. And I get it, but it was a terrible, terrible situation to live through.
Is it something that kind of like dogs you? Like, you know, is it always on your mind?
Well, look, it became very political.
And
People
it still
made
is, right?
accusations.
Yeah.
Well, politics is the way of the world now, right? But this issue became very political. They then called for a number of investigations, and we had 2 or 3 Department of Justice investigations. The Manhattan District Attorney investigated, the New York Attorney General investigated it. We had civil suits. They were all dismissed, and nothing came from any of them. But I understand why people are upset because it was a horrific, horrific situation.
Can we talk a little bit today in the Daily News? There's an op-ed from one of your deputy commissioners in the health department who talked about the accusations of undercounting deaths in nursing homes. How did that happen, and why is that still like part of the vernacular right now?
Yeah, it never happened. It is still a subject of pain for people. When you lose a loved one, it's years of grieving. And look at these situations. Not only did you not get a chance to go say goodbye, but then there were these conspiracy theories because it became so politicized, right? The president was blaming the states were blaming the president was suing the states. Everybody was pointing fingers. So it became very political, very weaponized, and then for people to think maybe government made a mistake and that's why mom died. That's a very, very difficult situation. Right. The bottom line at the end of the day, if this nation could redo everything, you should have known the virus was here months earlier. We didn't know until March. It had been coming since January. Where were the federal watchdogs? Why did it take so long for them to come up with a test? Why did it take so long to come up with a vaccine? But on the other hand, no one had ever dealt with it. And Monday morning quarterback is very easy, and you can always say, well, they should have done this,
5
you should
years
have
later,
done this.
right.
You know,
Monday morning quarterback.
But I know this. I believe the federal health officials did the best they could. The CDC and the CMS, which basically ran all the regulations, I believe that they did the best they could with the information they had. I believe all these states did the best they could with the information they had. You now have new information, and you want to say, well, retrospectively, they should have done this. But I can tell you this, those health officials worked 24/7. They were in those emergency rooms. It was scary. It was scary. They didn't know really how the virus transmitted. They didn't have enough PPE. And these people did everything they could, and they killed themselves. And then at the very end of the day, if you want to say, well, how did New York do relative to other states? They've actually counted now, finally, after all the rumors and after all the politics, only 12 states had a lower rate of death than the state of New York. Now think about that. Only 12 states had a lower rate of death in nursing homes. We had it first, we had it worst. The other states watched New York, they had time to prepare, and only 12 states had a lower rate of death. 37 states lost more people, had a higher rate of death than New York. So at the end of the day, I think the New York health professionals did everything they could, and the numbers show that. But again, one death is one death too many, especially in those circumstances.
Especially when it's your mother or father.
Yes, yes.
If you are elected on day one as mayor, what would be your first order of business?
There is no first order. There's 5 orders of business is the first order.
Okay.
Public safety, we have to do something about. I mean, it's what you heard in that room, right? When people are afraid to walk down the street, that's a problem. When people are afraid of homeless mentally ill on the street, that's a problem. When people say, I can't afford to live here anymore, I can't afford the cost of housing, that's a problem. When people say, I'm afraid of the chaos on the streets, I can't cross the street, the e-bikes, the scooters, etc., it just seems like mayhem, that's a problem. So there is a lot to do right out of the box. The basic point is stabilize the situation. Say to people, I understand the city has issues. Don't worry, we're on top of it. We're going to make progress, and give them the calm and the confidence that government can actually respond. It is like COVID in many ways, right? Yes, it was unknown and it was frightening, but say to people, we understand the problem. I understand the problem. We're doing everything we can, and have confidence that we will get through it because we're New Yorkers. And it's the same thing here. We can deal with these problems. We've dealt with worse. We just have to have the leadership and the competence and the experience to do it.
Do you get along with President Trump?
President Trump and I have worked together on many occasions. We've agreed, we've disagreed. We have to see what policies he intends to put in place. If he pursues these policies to cut health care and cut Medicaid, I'm telling you that is going to be a major problem for New York State and New York City.
What about the ICE coming into town and taking people who were accused of crimes?
If ICE, they have said different things, right? Both ICE and the president. If they focus on criminals, we do not harbor criminals in New York. We don't do that. If people committed crimes, then they should be deported, 100%. I agree with that. At the same time, we believe in immigration, right? Otherwise, you're not here.
Right.
Otherwise, I'm not here. So we don't demonize immigration because that's who we are. I'm Andrea, I'm Andrew Cuomo. for Andrea Cuomo. Without Andrea Cuomo coming as a poor, uneducated immigrant, there's no Mario Cuomo. Without Mario Cuomo, there's no Andrew Cuomo. So we believe in the story of immigration. It's going to be the posture of ICE. If they, as they said, focus on the worst of the worst, yes, we don't harbor criminals. If they say we're going into churches and hospitals, we're going to have a problem. I'm telling you that right now. If Honan thinks he's going to say to the mayor of New York, pardon the expression, I'll be up your butt, that is no way to treat the mayor of New York. This city deserves more respect.
So you
than
would
that.
never, so you would never stand for something, that kind of conversation.
I think that was disrespectful, and I think it showed disrespect, not just to the mayor, it showed disrespect to the city of New York. You want to work in a collaborative way, you start by showing respect.